joining us here at Drivewire Radio. My name is Carter, and let's get straight into it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you guys enjoy.
My official title is Senior Program Lead of Arts, Culture, and Creative Industry Development Agency. I'm an artist, and I'd say like my main title is just like going by Michael, and what that means in real terms is sort of working with the culture team at the city to be one of a few people that's really just trying to like support and grow like arts and culture in Brampton. As an artist myself, I feel like I kind of look at things a little bit differently. Like I said, I'm not your kind of typical maybe like bureaucrat or city suit person, and I think I just kind of bring a bit of a different lens to things, I hope.
So you're within like government agencies within the Brampton. Okay, so this is starting to make more sense. Can we just talk about all the red tape and the bullshit? Like, why are so many rules? Like, what's going on with that?
That's the question I'm asking as well. And I think that because I kind of come from never having worked in a city or for the government, I think that's part of the lens that I bring is like, okay, well, we've done things this way forever, but does it have to be this way? And it's no joke. Like there is a lot of, rules are there for a reason, but I mean, like rules are never going to change unless they're questioned either. So I feel like I don't have an answer as to like why there are so many rules and red tape, because I hate rules and red tape. And at least if I can't cut the red tape, at least I'll like bend it and push it and like question it. So in order for like a manager in a job to be good at what they're doing from their boss's perspective, they have to be like organizing and making rules for how shit should go. So to justify why they're getting paid their 6-figure salary or whatever they're taking home. So it's almost like these people in these positions aren't incentivized necessarily to have art and culture grow as much as they are to make these rules that are supposed to help our art and culture grow, whether or not they actually do. It's like, oh, look at all these rule changes we made because we're worth your money and this is our position and this is all our work, and like a show of hands of what we've done. For sure.
Instead of like, is that making sense?
No, it is making sense. Well, I think because so often there's just a disconnect, right, between the people that are making the rules and making the decisions and actually people that are on the ground. And you know, for me, like I am just like a super collaborative, very open, honest person, or at least try to be as much as possible. And like I'm most comfortable in a room with artists. I'm way more comfortable in that room than I am in a room full of politicians or suits, and I can play that game too, and I think often it's like a language barrier between the two. But what I'm really hoping to do with things like we're doing a monthly artist roundtable is like open the lines of communication a bit more too, and also hopefully do work that is like self-critical and like reflective, and is also like before things get along too far saying, you know, how are we doing? Is this actually working? Before, you know, to your point about rules and things sort of getting cemented, you know, before anything is written in stone, making sure that everyone in the community is actually on board.
Right.
Because I think that's another thing with cities and policies is often it's like, oh, well, that's the way it's been for 40 years and it's too late now to go back and change it. So my greatest fear would be putting anything in place that, you know, not only affects this generation of artists, but like future generations. Like we need to be kind of thinking about little artist kids and them growing up to be artists and like the world that we want them in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And like, I have a lot of sympathy for your position because the rules of engagement as per what an artist is changing, like with technology. It's changing with like human perception and the way that like everything about like I'm an art, like I'm a musician. And when I think of like Napster came out and then iTunes and then Spotify and then YouTube, and people watch music and they don't listen to it, but they still listen to it, but it doesn't have to be well produced to explode. And like, there's all of this that in like 30 years ago, none of it was. And now all of it is. So you're trying to make rules for the future in that environment.
Yeah, well, and I think exactly, you have to just be like rolling with the punches. And I think um anytime there are rules or things like that that cause issues, it's probably because they're written by somebody or led by somebody who's not putting in the effort to keep up with what's going on, you know. And for me, like, obviously my background is visual arts. I do sculpture and I do painting and I do installations. And I think for me, it's making sure I am looking at every aspect of arts and culture, and also trying to keep up with it and being like, okay, what does it mean for like art as NFTs, but also, you know, what is going on with Bandcamp right now, or, you know, different streaming platforms, or in the performance world, like especially in the times that we're in right now with COVID. Like, COVID has impacted every artist and performer and musician and everyone on the periphery of that in like uniquely difficult ways. So now is definitely not the time to be kind of like sticking with the norm, you know, or not thinking about how can we do things differently.
That is really, really, really tough. And I that's why I sympathize. Like, I have like emotions for you that are like, whoa, like that. I wouldn't want to do that. And I'm glad someone's brave enough like yourself to actually take it on. What are you, well, so let's talk about how, like, what are you thinking in terms of ways that the city of Brampton can make sure more art and culture happens there?
Well, I think Brampton came out with a culture master plan in 2018, which was a really good like roadmap for some of these things. And a big part of my job with the agency, and the agency came out of that culture master plan, is kind of putting it into action. So I'd say that, like, if we had to think about what the different buckets are, one would be space, like increasing more, you know, the availability of places for artists to make work, to show it, to share it, and to hang out. Frankly, like, there needs to be more places for artists to kind of like get together, like a little, like a beehive of community, and make things happen. So space would be one. Straight up, just like funding and investment in supporting artists. So how can I try and move the needle on that to get, frankly, more money just straight up into artists' hands? You know, anyone that's following the agency right now will see we're doing lots of like calls for artwork and calls for applications, like, and a lot of that is really just trying to get some funding out to folks. But looking bigger picture, how can we, you know, Brampton did an artist COVID relief fund. How can we look at doing maybe a recovery fund? Eventually, like bigger arts grants specifically for Brampton artists. And in the more like boring policy ways, like, how do we move the needle on like the amount of money that the city puts towards arts and culture generally, right? Because that will have a bigger impact than any number of workshops I do, is like per capita spending on arts and culture.
Do you structure these grants and loans in a way that, like, okay, we're going to give this to you, but when you reach X, you know, milestone, you perform in Brampton this number of times? Or like, are you trying to build not only the artists who come from Brampton, but also the artists who are playing and performing for the Brampton Pop, like for inside? Like, are you using it as a sort of bargaining chip to get people to stay here once they get big?
I mean, I've only been in this position for 3 months. So like, I think that's a big,
fair enough.
So I would preface that with like, anything is like, I am still in like exploratory phase where I'm kind of like sniffing around, seeing what's going on, seeing why things are the way they are, seeing like testing that red tape and pushing and seeing how far things can go. But I think that is a huge thing, is like, to your point, I don't know if I'm answering your question, it's just like, how do you keep Brampton artists in Brampton? And like, yeah. And you can't blame people for leaving if they're not feeling cared about or supported or resourced. Yeah, I mean, as far as specifically granting, like, I am, well, given everything we've talked about, it's probably no surprise that like the less rules, the better, as far as granting and funding, right? Because I think it can be so restrictive. And I think often in granting, and this doesn't apply to Brampton, this applies to like every level of arts funding, it's really like lots of hoops to jump through just so that you can say that the artist has jumped through it, rather than just like straight up money to exist, you know, and to function. Like, way more operating funding is, I think, what's needed for like, organizations, but also like just for artists to operate as individual artists. Because I think so often it's like project grants. And then what really happens is organizations are applying for like 8 different project grants just to have the money to keep the machine running, and kind of like tweaking the wording and doing whatever. So I think like the more money you can give to artists and the organizations that serve them just to like do what they need to do to keep the door open is important.
So really for you, you're in the system fighting for as much funding as possible for these artists. That's the angle right now.
I'm doing my best, yeah, and just learning how to navigate it all too, right? Like somebody recently told me that it can take up to 5 years until you understand the city processes and things like that. So
right,
and I would say like I'm not like this lone cowboy within the city hall. Like there are other people too that are interested in these things. Like it's not all people that clock in and clock out. There are lots of people that are committed to this cause too, including people on the culture team. I think it's just a matter of kind of figuring out the best steps forward.
Okay, I like that. And one thing too that we preach here at Drivewire is going to be accountability, like within the artist's life as well. So what are some things that an artist should be doing in order to catch the attention of someone in a position like you're in, and what kind of funding is available for them when they do catch your attention?
I would say just come and say hi to me, like, or shoot me an email. Like I really am trying to be as open as possible. My email is just michael.vickers@brampton.ca. And shoot me an email. We'll find a time to like have a virtual coffee and a chat and talk about that, what you're up to. And then I can, if I'm not the best person to help you, I'll connect you with them and link you up. So I'd feel like to get on my radar is no real, like magic mystery. It's just like say hi, shoot me a message, or slide into Culture Brampton's our DMs on Instagram and say, I'd love to set up a time to talk, and we can kind of go from there. As far as what funding is out there specifically for them right now, again, we're doing lots and lots of these calls for opportunities that I would send whoever is reaching out to me. We're looking again at this recovery fund for arts organizations. There is something called the Advanced Brampton Fund. I'm focused on seeing how we can improve that grant, but it is something that we have. And then also with, again, thinking bigger picture than just in Brampton, helping people connect to the Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Council, Factor Canada. And I think for me, I'm not somebody either that would just like connect you to somebody and then be like, okay, that's done, see you later. Like I would check in, or, and hope that they check in with me too. And we can kind of like make a plan together. Yeah.
So you're kind of committed to seeing the long-term growth of these artists, not just shooting them a wad of cash and seeing where it goes.
Well, if I can do both, if I can give a wad of cash and support them through it, that would be the best of both worlds. But like
I like that.
But yeah, right. Like, why can't we do both? So, but no, I mean, I think it is just different because I'm an artist too. My friends and family are all artists. Like I see the value in it all so much as well. Yeah.
So I want to talk about a little bit about your background, because I think it's like sort of when you think about the government job, to me, it's always like, I just think about gray walls and, boring people and standing around the cooler. Like that's just this crazy stereotype that I have, right? I know it's probably wrong, but is it strange for you being an artist inside that kind of a system, or no, like once you're in it, you meet a lot more people who are also creative too?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting to start this new job in COVID when I'm working from home, frankly. Sure. So it's like there isn't even that water cooler and cubicle yet, and again, it won't surprise you that I'm not a cubicle and water cooler kind of person, but and I think part of my role too, right, is being out and about and connecting with artists and being involved in the community. And I think that's also how you make sure you don't become somebody, right, who is in this office that actually doesn't know what's happening out there on the ground. So when things slowly return to normal, and I am having to sit at a desk. I think I'll be doing it, but also making sure I'm out at shows and out checking out exhibitions and doing all of those sorts of things. To your point, I would say though that like, I think everyone, myself included, has that idea of somebody sitting, kind of like the TV show The Office, like stuck in this sort of, but I think, even within the office, there are Jims and Pams and people that like, can laugh and try and push beyond that. And that's definitely been the case I've found in Brampton so far, is people, that want to do more. And I'm hoping to team up with them again. Like I'm somebody as well that I want to speak with the people in tourism. I want to speak with people in economic development. I want to speak with people in planning and city real estate. It doesn't serve culture any to just sit in a culture bubble.
That was well said. Yeah, it does make sense. Can you elaborate on, because I was going to actually, my next question was, are you looking at strategic alliances? So you touched on that, which means we're starting to get in good rapport. And I like that.
Yeah.
Can you like how would you collaborate with real estate or economic development or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for tourism, if they want people coming to Brampton, there's got to be cool stuff going on in Brampton, and that's part of my job, right? Too. And it works both ways, that more cool stuff will happen in Brampton if more people are coming. So it's kind of like a yin and yang. And so that's certainly how I see working with them. And tourism has been great, and they're really up for like exploring different ideas and activities that we could do. City real estate, it's like working with them to explore like what space is there in the city that maybe could be put to better use, or what city properties are underutilized that like we could make better use of.
An idea just hit my mind. Like, I don't know if this is even possible, and I certainly don't know what it's like to work inside the government, but like, I think a lot of realtors, for example, might need like, music and video to do their showings, especially online. So I'm wondering if there's almost a sort of like a resource that you could be connecting artists to ideas where artists are needed in the community.
For sure. Well, that's something I really hope to do too, is create like just so many different maps and lists of resources that work both ways, where if you are a business and you're looking to connect with an artist, we've created a space for you to do that. And if you're an artist looking for a business to work with or looking for a space to do something, there's a resource there for you to tap into too.
That would be really cool. A sort of like government sponsored artist needed Craigslist right on the city website. That's like, hey, this is what our business needs.
Yeah, a matchmaker really is like what I think a lot of my role is like being the middleman and introducing people. And again, that language barrier of like explaining what, I think the real estate and planning world uses a lot of acronyms that your average Joe doesn't understand.
True.
And it works both ways, right? Like there's lots of things that artists would talk about that maybe if you're a city real estate person, you're like, I don't really get what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think also just like generally demystifying each other. So, I think, say a real estate person has an idea of what an artist is, and they think of Van Gogh, and they think of some struggling artist toiling away in a studio. That's not true. And I think the artist thinks maybe of a real estate person as some slick jerk in a suit. And it's like, that's not necessarily
over a blueprint, drinking a rye.
Exactly, right? And it's like, there are those people, but there are lots that aren't. And it's like, we all have these stereotypes that we kind of have to like push through.
Interesting. Yeah. I like a lot how you're talking continually about the language, because that to me is something that I learned a lot in my job as a salesperson, but also in music. Like if you're not a bassist, but you want a particular like a sound, you can either sing it or you can try and articulate it, but you got to know the notes and the names and the, you got to know if you're using a blotting technique or an X technique or a shading technique. Like, so for you,
well, yeah.
How do you learn both? How do you learn both? The other side?
Practice, I think, is like anything too, right? It's like just trying to learn and being open. And And I think people rely on language a lot to make themselves seem smarter, right? Including artists. It's like, oh, well, you're not using this whatever technique, or and it's like, at the end of the day, we're talking about paint, and you can like go and use fancy words for whatever technique you're using, but we're talking about making a painting, or whatever it might be. So I think a lot of it is just like learning, and asking if you don't understand an acronym that some person is using, ask. Like, I think getting over that fear of sounding stupid. Like, I'd rather just say I don't know what that means, and then have them explain it to me. And I think, if anything, I hope at least people think the opposite. They don't think you're stupid for not knowing. They think, oh, they're smart enough to ask, rather than just like smiling and nodding and then afterwards being like, I have no idea what they said. It's like,
there's because I think you're right, and this is why. Because if you're talking to someone who really knows their stuff and you're bluffing, they're going to know you don't know your stuff. Yeah. Like they're going to hear it anyways. So if you're someone who's like, whoa, hold on, sorry to do this to you, but I didn't catch that, they're at least going to, like, they're going to recognize that you didn't know, but then they're going to respect you as someone who found out. But if they know you're bluffing and you don't ask, their respect is gone.
Well, yeah, and it's just going to hurt you in the long run, right? Like, I really don't have a problem asking somebody, like, kind of like, put this in layman's terms for me, or like, this is what I'm hearing from you. Is that what you mean? And I think just stopping to do that along the way. And I'm a constant note taker too. Like, I have just pieces of paper everywhere where somebody might say something and I'll jot it down, or be like, I need to look up what that means, or whatever it might be too. But yeah, I think
I see why they've chosen you for this position, because I like that. I don't think I would have taken that approach. And I think that linguistic conversation of the middleman sort of mentality is going to make you really effective, because those alliances, I think, are smart and they're strong. And if you do get to become some sort of matchmaker, I would be very happy for the city of Brampton if that was the case.
Well, thanks so much. I'm trying to do it in small ways already, but I think there's a long, exciting road ahead of things that we could do. And I think it's being honest. And I think in that matchmaker role, trying to be somebody who can kind of speak up and say, I think what they're trying to say to you is and not in a condescending way either, but also just be like trying to be a translator in that middle role as well sometimes.
And also, like, you can position the pitch better. Like, if you're talking to someone in economic development, they probably couldn't care about a concert, but they could probably care about a revenue driving event.
Well, exactly, right. And if you're trying to talk about the value of arts, and they're like, oh yeah, I love arts. Arts is so cool. My sister's an artist. But then you're like, oh yeah, did you know that the arts contributes $25 billion annually to the provincial economy? It's like, whoa, okay, that's that's a little bit different. And they're like, oh, I take that a bit more seriously now. Just thinking, constructing your argument for the audience.
Yeah, and that's really wise. And I think there's a huge amount of I'm going to call it business, or a huge number of transactions that don't happen because the language isn't right. The artist is speaking the artist language, and the tourist person or the economic development person speaking theirs, and neither one of them understands that they're probably saying the same thing.
Exactly. And like, I want to believe that most people want to see cool, exciting, kind, awesome things happen in the world. And so if you can just kind of try and find a way to make people work towards that. Yeah.
Cool ass answer, man. When did you start like drawing, painting, sculpting? What's your background?
So like, my background before this, I've been an artist like as long as I can remember. Like, I was always drawing. And then I actually went to school for journalism originally. I love writing as well. And so then I switched to doing an undergrad in communications and in visual art, and then was an artist, packed up and moved to New York. I lived in New York for like 3 years. And then, just trying to become like the next Andy Warhol, basically. And then after 3 years was just like very poor and very tired. And so like went on a big backpacking trip and then came back to Canada. And then I went to Toronto. I did my master's in art history. And then I would say is when I started really like taking my practice more seriously, and professionalizing, I guess, my interest in arts. And then always having a job as well, like worked for the Museum of Contemporary Art in events and education, worked a lot in commercial galleries. For me, that was sort of like, if you're in a band, it can't hurt to work at a record label just to understand like how things, again, right? We're talking about language, and it's like understanding how things work on the other end. And that's part of my interest in working for the city as well, right? Is understanding how a city works.
This is
and then before coming to Brampton, helping grow an organization called Akin in Toronto, which basically finds vacant space and converts it into shared artist studios and does a whole bunch of community programming. And after growing that for about 10 years, I kind of hit a point where I just wasn't really learning anything anymore, and was ready for a change. I feel like, especially in COVID, lots of people kind of paused and said, okay, what am I doing that I love? What could I be doing differently? And kind of like reflecting, and this opportunity came about to kind of a lot of the things that we're talking about, thinking about like policy and things on a different level. I'm like a very optimistic person, maybe a bit naively sometimes, but I feel like, yeah, you may as well shoot for the moon and you land among the stars, but apply that to like arts and culture in Brampton as well, right? It's like,
but you know what though? We need those people. We need the cautious people too, who are naively dark about their assumptions. They're naive in the other way. I tend to be more naively optimistic like yourself. Like I see a lot of similarities between myself and yourself, and that's how I am too. But
it's a lot more fun, right?
Way more fun. Way more. I dig that, man. One of my favorite questions that I always ask every single person, I get the best answers to this. And for you,
no pressure.
Yeah. No, the reason I like it is because there is no bad answer. I've had every single answer to this. Now, usually, I'll be talking to like a photographer or like someone who's in like specifically in the arts. So for you, I'm probably going to leave this one open. But usually the way I frame it is, aside from your main skill, what is the one skill that's helped you the most in what you do? So if you're still too kind of new for this one, maybe for the previous company and building and all of that, aside from like art itself, what do you think has helped you the most?
I think for both like my art practice and for my role now and for any role I've ever had and probably anyone going forward is just like a kindness was the word I was going to come back to. It's just like being kind and collaborative and like trying to help other people and be kind about it. Also understand that everyone has a battle that maybe you don't even know about, and everyone has their own stuff going on. But I think always being willing to like lend a hand. And if you have an opportunity to like hook somebody up with an opportunity, do it. They'll probably do it for you down the line too. And that has happened in my life time and time again, where it's like, if I can help this person out, I will. And not doing it with the motivation of like, hopefully eventually they'll like support me. But it almost always like, the world is small, and like I'm a big believer in karma too, like, which I guess kind of comes back to kindness, is just like putting good energy out there and it will probably come back to you. Even if things mess up along the way, it'll all work out in the right way. But I think, kindness in that and in that comes collaboration, putting out your hand, saying like, we are stronger together, and I'd rather work with, other people.
Good answer, man. Really good answer.
Thanks. It's honest.
There wasn't any pressure. No pressure.
Well, there was some pressure. I could have said something stupid, I guess, but no, I think it's like, like just try and help other people out. They'll try and help you out too. And trust that,
Dude, I appreciate it. Those are good answers, man. Those are good answers. Are you planning to pick up the art career like further as well? Are you still doing that on the side as well, or not?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, I mean, that is still very much rolling. I think that's part of it too, like talking about COVID. It's like, and understanding the impact on artists. It's, I had exhibitions canceled too. I had a bunch of my own art stuff that I was going to do over the last year that either got canceled or postponed. And then, which I think often has happened during COVID for a lot of people. It's like, oh, it's postponed, and then it's postponed again. And you're like, oh, it's actually just kind of canceled, isn't it now?
Yeah, they're just saying postponed, but it's actually canceled.
Yeah, exactly. It's like people right now that say, oh, we're just going to have like a really small, simple wedding, and then we're going to have a huge rager when the world's back to normal. And that like, probably not going to actually end up having that party.
What's really funny is right now I'm engaged, and that's exactly our conversation.
Well, I'm engaged too. And I'm also trying to plan my wedding. And we're very much like, we're sticking to our date. We're doing it when we say we're going to do it. I mean, I'm not trying to knock you if you are planning on having this huge party, but just make sure you do it. Because I feel like lots of people are like, oh yeah, we're going to have the 200 thing. And it's like, okay, well, life happens too, right? So
yeah.
Also, it's okay if you don't have that party. Maybe you just want a small, sweet little thing. But yeah, that's funny. Like I said,
I'll be having a rager, Michael's saying.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, no, we're keeping ours small and cute. I don't want to plan another party. I'll go to other people's parties for now. Yeah.
Fair enough, man. Well, dude, that completes my list of questions. Do you have anything that you want to say? Do you have a place where you want to direct people's attention? Where should they check stuff out?
Oh, thanks so much for asking.
Yeah, please.
Well, I think on any social media, if you just check out @CultureBrampton, so @CultureBrampton, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, any of that, that's where you'll be able to sort of find out what the Arts, Culture, and Creative Industry Development Agency is up to. If you also go to ACCIDA.ca, so ACCIDA.ca, Arts, Culture, and Creative Industry Development Agency. We'll eventually shorten the name into something more succinct, but that's what it is for now. Check that out. My email is on there as well. Get in touch if you'd like to, but come out to stuff is what I would say too. We're doing these artist roundtables once a month. We're doing lots of workshops. Check it out. Bring some friends. Like there's room for everyone at the table, and I want the table just to get as big and full as possible. So thank you so much thank you for the opportunity to be here too. It's not lost on me that that's like a real opportunity. So thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. Thank you. And just to end it like this, I'm probably going to reshoot a proper intro of who you are because I apologize for getting that wrong. That's on me, but it was good information that you dropped. I really am grateful to have had the chat. And, it makes me feel happy that there are people inside the red tape who see the red tape like I do. Because a lot of times for me, it's frustrating where I'm like, well, if those silly rules weren't there, a lot more stuff could get done and a lot more productive stuff. And it seems to slow the good things down instead of speed them up. And that it frustrates me, man. As someone who doesn't know why or what's going on, it's hard to see.
Yeah, it is very difficult. Yeah.
But we got you inside working on it.
I'm trying. You got a mole. You got a mole in an artist mole in the city hall trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah,
I dig that. If there are artists who want to support what you do and who want Culture Brampton to succeed, what could they do to help that movement?
I think honestly, just coming out to stuff. Sign up for the newsletter. Join our events. We have a call for advisory panel members out at the moment right now. So if you go and check that out. Eventually, it'll become the board that I report to, but there's opportunities to join that and get involved. I hope eventually to have like an artist advisory committee too, so that along with the board, there's a group that I can go back to, kind of like we were talking about, and say, hey, are we missing the mark?
Oh, man. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you spitting fire bombs. It's actually was really helpful information, man. I really appreciate it, and I'm grateful that you took the time for lowly Drivewire Radio.
No, not lowly Drivewire. Are you kidding me? I'm nobody. So.
Come on, pal. You're the senior director of arts and culture. That's someone.
I'm the king of arts and culture. No, thank you. Yeah, it was. No, I really appreciate the opportunity. It's great to meet you. Please, like everything I said, come out to stuff too. Like come when you can and feel like hanging out. Like Yeah, I hope to stay connected to you too. When the world goes back to normal, I would love to get a beer with you at a show and like see what's going on.
Yeah, let's collaborate, man. Whatever Drivewire can do, whatever messages we can put out there. If you want to do like collaborated marketing, if you want to get the attention of artists, like let us know. We're starting to build a name for ourselves, and we're happy to. We want to collaborate because we don't see this as a us versus them kind of game with anybody. We see this as an artist versus the world kind of game. So how can we collaborate, and who are we collaborating with is 100% of our team all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. So I really appreciate you coming on. I got a lot of value, and I know the audience did too. Have a good one, man. So. As soon as COVID's over and we have our huge wedding party, you'll be there.
Great. I'll be the MC. I'll be the drunk MC.
I'm taking you up on that. Okay.
Sounds good.